Another Wednesday's come and gone, and I've got some comics. Let's talk about them. Hey, welcome to 9 Panel Grid. This week, we've seen the terraforming of godly worlds, musical transformations, and billionaires drop kicking babies. But we're going to kick off things this week with Absolute Batman number 6, written by Scott Snyder with artwork by Nick Dragotta. This was a wild and crazy issue, as I feel like Nick Dragotta really got to unleash on this one. This was definitely written to his strengths to kind of really convey all the action and kinetic energy that his artwork has. I loved what they were able to put forth here with kind of the growth and development of Bruce, as there's been kind of shaky ground as he's kind of learned the ways to become Batman. This kind of cements what his approach is going to be. One of my favorite aspects of the series so far, in this issue in particular, though, is the relationship that Martha, who has survived in this universe, what she has with Bruce, and how they've kind of grown and how they've also been pulled apart in certain ways. But her character is so integral to where I feel like the story's strengths really lie. Her relationship with Bruce and her relationship not only with Bruce, but with Jim Gordon as well feels like really, I don't know, heartfelt, and it feels like the heartbeat of this entire series. Nick Dragotta gets to render some crazy action scenes, as I feel like this is really the culmination of the first arc of the series here, as Batman really gets to take on Black Mask in a way that feels somewhat final on this one. We'll see where things play out with that. Overall, though, this was a crazy, wild issue, definitely worthwhile for you to check out. Next up, we have Absolute Flash number 1, written by Jeff Lemire with artwork by Nick Robles. This was a decent introductory issue here as we get to kind of live within the shoes of our Flash within this universe right now, who's Wally West. And it feels very Jeff Lemire for this kind of superheroic story. I feel like it leans into kind of some of the things that he likes to do and some of the things that's made him successful. What that means in this issue, though, is that there is a lot of character development. We kind of really set a good foundation of who Wally West is, the world around him, and kind of how he's going to navigate within that world. What we don't really get is some of the hooks and the plot points. This is really light on story, heavy on character motivation, and heavy on character development. So it's kind of a good and bad thing. I don't know where the series intends to go and what it means for Wally West to be Flash within the Absolute Universe. What I can tell you is that the character himself, I really like the fact that they kind of play with the character motivations. He's a teenager, he's full of teen angst, but he also understands that he needs to slow down, he needs to breathe, he needs to center himself. And to play that against the go, go, go aspect of the Flash and that superpower, it works out really well. I like what they're building towards here. I just need to see how they're going to actually deliver on what the story will end up being. Other notes on this is that because there's the militaristic aspect of kind of like his upbringing right now, it's kind of cool seeing his rogues gallery lean into those kind of things as well. There's really cool juxtaposition on these villains, but also being governments and militaristic kind of backgrounds on it. I like the play that they have with that. So overall, it feels like they have a lot of ground to still kind of lay out for us, but what we're delivered within this first issue at least puts strong characters at the center point. All right, Batman and Robin Year 1 number 6 came out, written by Mark Waid with artwork by Chris Samney. And I feel like this is the first issue of this series so far where I feel like Mark Waid got to take like maybe a backseat on this, as the story has been extraordinarily strong so far. But this one, it felt like it was more of a breather issue. We get to see kind of what happens as Dick Grayson finally kind of like really came into his own. He was kidnapped previously, but he was able to escape. Him and Bruce, like their relationship has been pulled apart so far, but now we're starting to see it come back together. It's been a real character motivation kind of issue, similar to what I was saying with Absolute Flash. Granted, this we're 6 issues in. With that being said, Mark Waid got to kind of like sit back a little bit. Chris Samney gets to push forward. I really love Chris Samney as an artist. I feel like he was able to shine in this issue. There's a lot of great, things that he does in here, both with action and just with character, development and kind of like the emotions that he's conveying on the faces of these characters. Really good stuff here. The colors definitely pop within this issue. There's great lettering. Overall, it's just, again, a great series that continues to build issue over issue. This fits that trend. It fits the mold of what they've put forward here. Not a lot of plot development pushing forward here, but it's a good breather issue so we could pick the pace back up within the next issue. All right, let's talk New Gods number 4, written by Ram V with artwork by Evan Cagle. Evan Cagle is shining on this book, man. Every single issue that comes out, I think back of previous work that he's done, and it just feels like he's leveled up in here. The storytelling is probably the largest aspect that really makes me smile every single time I see another issue of this book, because it just, I don't know, it's different. It feels so much stronger than any work that I've seen from him previously. Heavy lies the crown in this issue, man, is I feel like we get to spend a lot of time with Highfather, both in the past as kind of New Genesis is being erected and being built, and kind of the idea of what this place is going to be is kind of looked back on, and now we see that, in composition with today's, things that are transpiring, where New Genesis and Apocalypse are basically just, discombobulated, as Darkseid is no longer with us, so the balances have been tipped. There's destruction everywhere. There's no one has any aspect of control right now, and it's definitely weighing on Highfather in ways that we didn't necessarily anticipate. On top of that, we get to spend time again with Mr. Miracle and Big Barda, as Orion's time frame that he set for Scott has now expired, and now he's on the path to find this new god, and Scott needs to do something. He needs to find this child, which he's done, but he also now needs to protect him from Orion himself. So we get the really cool kind of culmination of all of those things coming together now, as we get to basically kind of jumpstart into what the story was promised for us within issue number 1. Great writing by Ram V. He gets to play both, basically like both parts, the historical aspects of New Genesis and just kind of the new gods themselves, while also giving us this really kind of like ramped up action, book here with Orion and Mr. Miracle, kind of the battle of the wits and a battle of, the minds here, trying to keep this child safe and also hunt the child down. Great stuff. I'm loving this book. Ramvi, he's like one of the best writers in the game right now. So if you're not picking this up, man, you got to consider it. It's awesome. All right, let's talk Nullhunter number 6, written by Michael Walsh with artwork by Gustavo Vargas. Another really strong issue here. I'm loving the way that they're playing on all of the Greek mythology aspects here as we're delivered the 12 feats of Hercules. This one, we're about the halfway point here. And at a halfway point within a story, you know that there should be some shift, some change that happens with our main character as they kind of redirect where the story is going to go, especially with a hero's journey that we get, such as the one with Hercules and our kind of stand-in character for Hercules within this book. Michael Walsh has always been known to be a sparse writer, but just kind of like the minimalistic aspects of like some artists and their approaches. Him with the writing, I feel like it's the same way. He chooses the words precisely and he chooses them wisely. So there's nothing that is wasted. There's nothing that's kind of just put on the page here just to be verbose, right? And show, ooh, what kind of writer I am. Like, no, everything is pristine, precise, exactly what needs to be said is said, and we get from panel to panel effectively. But also, again, like the big moments do get a chance to shine in this book here. Let's not to say that he kind of just briskly moves through it. It lets you like kind of take in the artwork, and it lets the art do some of the storytelling here without having to tell the story through the words itself. Really great teamwork here by Gustavo and Michael Walsh. I love what they're doing within this book. This also sets the stage for where this series is going to go, as now our main character kind of knows that Olympus has totally screwed him over here. He knows that he's been backstabbed and he's kind of been set forth to do these things, not understanding the full scope of why he's been doing it. At the end of this issue, we kind of get the revelation of who actually set forth everything that's been happening here. Now our Hercules stand-in knows it, and now things are going to hit the fan. So I'm really excited to see where this series goes. I like where it's developing here, and I'm having a blast with it. Next up, we have One World Under Doom number 2, written by Ryan North with artwork by RB Silva. I'm surprised how much I'm actually like enjoying this, because I've been kind of down on Marvel. I've definitely been down on event books here across like all comics here. This one's kind of surprising me though. I feel like what they're doing is super effective because this could very simply be a villainous book where it's just Doom, does has machinations and for world domination and the heroes stop him. But it's not taking the simple approach here. Doom is doing things very much you know, in service to humanity, basically. He's not doing things to be selfish or cruel. He's doing things that are truly for the betterment of everyone here. And you're seeing society see those things and are being impacted positively by these things. The heroes know it's doom, so they're definitely still trying to work towards like defeating him or putting a plan forth to stop his plan, but it's making our heroes turn out to look extraordinary villainous, not just in the book. It's not like it's one of Doom's plans, but I'm flipping each page going, wow, the Fantastic Four don't really seem like the greatest people right here and right now. That's effective writing. So I got to give kudos to Ryan North for his approach on here. RB Silva does really fantastic work here 99% of the time. And when I say that, I mean that's an excellent book here, but man, I got to say there is 1% of the time where he's drawing expressions on people's faces that look totally wacky. If you've read this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't, flip through the pages, you're probably going to find what I'm talking about. But hey, 99%, that's pretty darn good here. That 1% will totally be able to, just brush that aside here. We'll forget that it even happened. So overall, as far as events go, as far as Marvel books go, this is one of them that I would probably recommend. We have a new premiere issue, so let's talk Out of Alcatraz #1, written by Christopher Cantwell with artwork by Tyler Crook. This was like a really like great like foundational kind of premiere issue. I love what they did here as I feel like they did everything that I would expect a really good new #1 issue to do. The pacing is solid, the storytelling is really great, the character development totally works, and it gives us a hook that really entices us to get back into the next issue. We're dealt with a team of four people who are going to be attempting to escape Alcatraz. And when the issue picks up here, we're at the escape. And we notice that four is already down to three. Of those three people that are trying to escape Alcatraz, two actually do make it. So 4 to 3 to 2. That's pretty good storytelling. I like the way that they play with those things and how they kind of like tell the story of how those things came to be. And these two people that have escaped Alcatraz, we now see that they're also part of a bigger plan that's going to get them not only out of prison, but kind of get that back into the life of crime so that they can, culminate enough money here to kind of put that in the back seat and kind of move on with their lives and figure out how they're going to kind of move forward with new identities and maybe a pocket full of cash. Chris Cantwell has done these kind of stories previously as well, and I feel like this had like the feelings that he had in books like regarding Oswald's body, where it's kind of a historical time that he's dealing with, and a group of characters, unlikely people pushed together here for to kind of put a plan together. He's done that before. He's doing it right here, pretty darn effectively. I like the interactions between these characters, and the artwork by Tyler Crook, really good stuff here. I feel like it's really fitting for the time and it's really fitting for the story that's being told here. So overall, for a premiere issue, this is really exciting. I'm definitely going to be picking up issue #2. Next up, we have The Sacrificers #15, written by Rick Remender with artwork by Max Fiumara. This is vengeance kind of like on full display, and it's kind of different this time because previously it was Pidgey, our character, who was one of the sacrifices that was going to be made here to the gods. This time it's the sun god himself coming down to the planet here to kind of put eyes on his own worshippers and lay to waste every single person here because he can see now maybe he's been too easy in his eyes towards them, and now his daughter Saluna is out there somewhere where he does not know, but he's searching for her, and he knows that some of the people who have worshipped him are the people that are holding her and are kind of keeping her secret from where he needs to find her. I love that basically the viewpoints of the gods are really played with here, and I feel like this issue is Rick Remender almost at his like most poetic, the way that he's like explaining the thought patterns of these gods and how he really views the people that are worshiping him, and how even though they've sacrificed clearly because of the title everything, for the worship of these gods. And still, it's not enough for him. He sees himself as being like this, the person who's sacrificed his own for their well-being and kind of like, given them everything that they could possibly need. It's so eerie kind of to see the people who sit on high and how they look at the things that they do for the people who are groveling and, still in need clearly, even though like he's, giving them the scraps and crumbs. So I really love what's happening in this book and how you get these different viewpoints and how you can perceive them differently. The color work on top of that is amazing. When we're dealing with the sun god here, the colors, man, they are so vibrant in this issue. But that's not to say that this is a big orange blob of an issue, right? There's a lot of great contrast that is worked into this issue here that really make the images pop. The cliffhanger on this issue, too, man, it sets things up to have a big, bold next issue here if they pick up where they left off. A lot of big things coming down the pipeline here. Sacrificers continues to be one of my favorite comic books that's coming out month over month here. This kind of follows that same track. All right, let's talk Saga number 72, written by Brian K. Vaughan with artwork by Fiona Staples. This was an interesting issue, as I feel like we've got to spend a lot of time with Hazel and her family, her mother, her, step siblings, all of the cast of characters that kind of come in and out of each and every arc of this book, basically. But this issue, kind of, they take a back seat, and we have an inciting incident that really changes the landscape of the entire universe for Saga right now, as previous governmental team ups basically kind of shift their perspectives and change alignments here, and it totally changes everything that's happening here, gosh, from like what we've come to know from issue number 1 all the way through this point in the series. It's changing things, but that also makes this a really unique, interesting issue, but it kind of makes it a little bit boring as a standalone issue. We get to see real quick glimpses of like the viewpoints of how everyone is going to be impacted by this change in the solar system and how these alignments are shifting, but we don't really get to see any of these changes. We get to see the reactions, and while we get that reaction, before we can kind of really sit and resonate in it, we're shifting to another person, and then we're shifting to another person, and so on and so on and so on. So overall, I feel like this is kind of setting the stage for what a new arc will kind of kick off from, and we can get some big, bold new ideas from here. As a standalone issue, though, gotta say, I feel like this wasn't the most effective. Next up, we have Ultimate Black Panther number 14, written by Brian Edward Hill with artwork by Carlos Nito. Similar to what I was just talking about with Saga, this feels like it was a substance issue, but not necessarily an issue that is going to be delivering something right here and right now that's like mind blowing. It's all a lot of setup here for future events as we get to spend most of the time actually not with any of our main characters, right? We don't get to spend time with Moon Knight, with T'Challa very much within the beginning of the issue here, not even Killmonger, but we get to see some of the actions that are taking place within the greater world of, Wakanda and Africa, where they're trying to still kind of reap control over the vibranium, this anti-vibranium material, and kind of what's happening within the militaristic viewpoints of both of those factions. Later on in the issue, we do get to spend time with T'Challa, and I do like the fact that he's kind of looking inward, and he's seeing how the vibranium has definitely influenced some of his actions and some of the things that he's done, and he's now reverting back and kind of stepping away from allowing that to happen. But with that happening, he also needs to seek out help here, primarily from Killmonger, as he kind of puts him in control of a larger part of Wakanda than he probably ever would have previously, all in the efforts to kind of take on the mantle of Black Panther again without vibranium, and kind of go on his own path as he tries to seek out, I guess, answers basically. Really cool setup issue. Again, I feel like if you're on board with Black Panther, this is definitely going to, be exciting for you. If you've kind of fallen off because of the slow burn nature of it, this is probably not going to draw you back. Overall, for me though, I gotta say, I enjoyed it. Speaking of slow burn books, let's talk about one that's kicked into high gear recently. Let's talk about Ultimate X-Men number 13, written and drawn by Peach Momoko. That's been kind of like the big critique of this book is that, oh my god, it's slow burn. It's just like nothing is really happening in this book. Well, let me tell you, this issue is action packed from start to finish. We have a huge fight scene. That's all this issue is. As now we have Hisako under the influence of the Shadow King character here, really taking on our other cast of characters here, right? All the mutants here, whether they were with the Children of the Atom cult or just the friends that she's had in school who has been revealed to have had powers, all of them team up here to not just take on Hisako, because that's not their intention, but to really fight the influence that the Shadow King has over her. There's a lot of cool things that happen here. The artwork, if you like Peach Momoko and her storytelling aspect, really works effectively here. A lot of cool things that are revealed in here too, as I feel like there's like a power struggle almost. The Shadow King feels like he has maybe power and manipulation over certain characters, but now we come to see that maybe the Children of the Atom and their leader maybe has more influence over all of them than we ever truly really knew about, especially with the dismantling of the organization, as it kind of was more like widespread known as they were revealed to the greater public. This is a really good issue here. Again, if your critique was that this was slow burn, but you kind of liked other parts of it, this might be a good issue to jump back into and see if it's worthwhile here, because it could possibly change your mind. Next up, let's talk Zatanna number 2, written and drawn by Jamal Campbell. I gotta say, this was a contender for pick of the week. It was an extraordinarily strong issue that I had so much fun with. Jamal Campbell must have seen like what Javier Rodriguez was doing here in the previous Black Label miniseries that Zatanna had, and said, "Okay, I know I need to up my game." Because he's definitely doing that, but it's not just from an artistic perspective either. He's doing a lot of great storytelling here. As in the first issue, Zatanna was basically manipulated, right? She was kind of full of bravado and she kind of went on this mission to possibly save this person. All the while, there are magical forces that are kind of transpiring against her, and they have definitely put her through the ringer. Now she has a curse on her that's not allowing her to fully kind of control the scope of her magic abilities. She's trying to keep all of all of her friends at arm's length here, even though they definitely could be helping, especially knowing that they have magical abilities of their own. But it's really leaning on the character of Zatanna, which I love so much. One of my big critiques of the Black Label book here is, while I love the character of John Constantine, I didn't really want him to be part of it. I feel like every magical story in the DC universe kind of eventually leads to him. I don't want to do that. I was really fearful that this is kind of gonna go down that path, and it doesn't, and I respect it so much more for it. The artwork by Jamal Campbell too is absolutely stunning. There are so many cool things that he does here, especially with the color work. I really love how both the color in the more colorful, eventful times, the panels in this book here, they really pop. But there is a lot of opportunity, especially kind of working within the magical aspects of Zatanna's powers, where she gets to kind of maneuver into different areas that make it so that the color kind of is lacking in those panels. But in lacking, it also kind of shows a different artistic perspective from Jamal Campbell as well, that make them just as much worthwhile as the really colorful panels. Zatanna is really awesome. It's crafting this really great tale here that is definitely putting her in the spotlight and letting her be the hero of the story here, and really kind of giving you the sense of danger that makes it worthwhile to come back. And with my runner up pick of the week, let's talk Spectrum number 4, written by Rick Quinn with artwork by Dave Chisholm. I wanted this issue for issue number 3 so bad, and I feel like issue number 3, maybe I was a little bit, I don't know, hard on my review, because this is the story that I wanted. I needed a little bit of understanding. And this series, while it has been something that didn't hold your hand, which I appreciate because I like things to be open to interpretation, I felt like I needed a little bit of hand holding on this to kind of really spell out what this story meant and what all of these characters were really doing in the background. This issue delivers that, and it delivers it so magnificently. As it still doesn't hold your hand, it kind of just like nudges you in the right direction. So we now understand basically the powers that are being manipulated from our main character, who we were introduced to in issue number one, Melody. We can see how she traverses through time and reality through music, and how music truly is kind of like a connection point between individuals and individuals within time itself, right? You can navigate the lyrics and the musical instruments as two people are listening to them simultaneously. Not only that, but we also really understand the organization who's trying to stop Melody as well, as there's really cool, I don't know, set pieces that Dave Chisholm really works with. And I love the artistic approach here too, is because as we move back and forth, the greater story is told through one artistic style, if you will. Whereas if you go to this other portion where you're kind of getting maybe a little bit of a backstory on this organization, the style totally shifts and changes, and you totally see like where this sketchy almost approach totally moves over to a more painterly approach here. And you see all kinds of tools being used here as well, because it's not just that, but we also see like almost color pencil and crayons being used in certain panels as well. It's like an artistic, foray basically put on display for us, and I love it. It works out so well. So not only do we have a greater understanding of the world and what it really means for our main characters as they're trying to search for our secondary character's father, but we also get more information on this organization. And again, it's drawn so beautifully. Spectrum is really turning out to be a special book. I'm enjoying it so much because of what it doesn't tell you. This issue gives you just enough because you want to come back and you want to get more and more and more from this world. And with my top comic of the week, let's talk The Power Fantasy number 7, written by Kieran Gillen with artwork by Casper Wingard. Man, this was a really exciting issue as we start to learn even more about this world. We've kind of been given hints that the reason that the atomics, right, these superpowered beings had kind of fractured and kind of developed this uneasy alliance. We were told about this second Summer of Love event that occurred, but we really didn't know what happened there. But we can definitely see that it's had an impact on all of these individuals. Well, within this issue, we definitely get to see the scope of what happened here. As we know that in the present day, all of the factions, right, whether it's Heavy or whether it's Valentina, that like they're all trying to find this character who is kind of like this hellish character, right? Because she has powers that basically trump every single other power that any of the other atomics have. And what we see in the past is that the second Summer of Love, there was this angelic character who was really trying to just like influence everyone in a positive manner and shift and change reality to make everyone just a much more peaceful existence. But what's happening is that this character, while they had the best intentions, maybe they put too much on their shoulders. Something happened for their persona to crack and change. And what we're seeing now is this angelic character was the catalyst for this second Summer of Love event to happen, which kind of like ripped apart reality for a certain subset of this area. And not only that, but it also changed the nature of who she was as well. And we can kind of see, or at least put the puzzle pieces together, that this angel really truly did turn into a devil here sometime, yeah, at that event. Now, we don't really know the full scope of what happened here, but we can definitely see, again, the changes that have happened in the characters, and we can see, and we've been told just how truly gruesome of an event that was for the world and for the atomics themselves, as I feel like they maybe felt powerless just in the scope of this one person doing what they did. So this really is an explainer issue, but in this explainer issue, it just kind of it gives you so much about each and every character, and it sets the stage for exactly where we could be going in the future of this series here. Is again, we're playing with big, bold superpowers that are like unchanged. There's no handcuffs on this story, and there's no handcuffs on the characters, which means that what can happen with the culmination of all these superpowers probably will. And when I say probably will, I'm so excited to see for the time when that does happen, because this could probably only be a fraction, but that fraction was astronomical. So for those reasons here, Power Fantasy Man was absolutely worthy of Top Comic of the Week. So that's what I've got for you this week, but I'm more curious. What did you read, and what were your thoughts? Do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe, and be part of the panel. Leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you next week.